You are listening to the New American Media.
All right, round two begins. We're not talking about round two of the draft. We're just talking about our second segment with NBA scout Zak Baris. He's a lifelong Cleveland sports fan. NBA scout just wrapped up his very first full season and NBA draft night fiesta. Go ahead and follow him on Twitter. He's at Z Baris. That's ZBARIS. All right, Zach, so let's go through these. Anthony Bennett, we've covered. Well, let's jump to number two. Victor Oladipo with the Magic. How is he going to blend there? How do you see that playing out?
He's a nice fit, especially if they can trade for Eric Bledsoe or pick up a point guard. I love the pick even more because it'll give him a really, really nice backcourt. But I like Oladipo. Like I said, you're getting a stud defensively, and he's just a high-character guy. He makes everyone around him better. You know, he put up a lot of clutch performances at Indiana, had some unbelievable ones in the end of the second half. You know, I like him a lot. I think he's going to be a solid player, and I think he's very underrated offensively.
And before we go to number three with the Wizards, I just got to ask you about the Celtics and the Kevin Garnett and the Nets. And I got to do that before I forget. What are your thoughts on that? Because that was a huge story.
Well, it's a competition now to get to the first pick next year. You're going to see some really, really bad teams. You know, Boston was trying to unload, pick up extra picks. You know, Brooklyn Prokhorov proved he does not care about. He's going to pay $80 million in the luxury tax next year. Does not care. You know, but you wonder how good Brooklyn can be. Is this the 2004 Lakers all over again? You know, with Karl Malone and Gary Payton, or is this a team where Paul Pierce and KG have managed to blend with superstars before? It's just going to be incredibly weird to see Pierce in another uniform other than the Celtics. I'll say that. You know, this guy's been there forever. And, I think Brooklyn, they made a trade. They got some great players. They gave up Marshawn Brooks in the trade, who I really like. I think Boston's going to have a really, really terrible year, especially if Rondo isn't healthy. But you wonder if Rondo wasn't able to mesh with guys like KG, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce well, and he was a coach killer there, how is he going to mesh with a bad, a bunch of, I don't want to say bad, a bunch of young guys? It's going to be tough. There's a lot of unanswered questions in Boston. Are they going to win 12 games this year? Are they going to win 25 games? I think this is an opportunity to watch Jared Solinger play, watch Marshawn Brooks, guys like Jeff Green. Boston still has some talent there. It's just going to be a weird year in Boston, to say the least.
Yeah, and their coach is gone. I mean, absolutely. It's
going to be. Brooklyn has to. Brooklyn was a 44-win team last year. You would have to think that adding Jason Terry, KG, and Pierce have to add, at least 10 wins at Baltimore. You're looking at a team that's going to win in the mid-50s next year.
And what Jason Kidd with all those players, all those older veteran.
Well,
players.
That's the thing is too. I mean, Jason Kidd's got a great roster to work with. I don't know if he's any older than KG. I mean, if he is, he's like a year older.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously the guys have respect for Jason Kidd. He's one of the most respected point guards in league history. He's been the ultimate teammate forever. He's never a selfish player.
The ultimate teammate, as long as it's not like his significant other, because he used to beat on his girls or something, right? There was that whole thing. Yes.
Well, I didn't say he was the ultimate partner.
Okay, an ultimate teammate, not a life teammate. Anyway, I digress.
But Jason Kidd, though, I'm excited to see. Brooklyn's going to be one of those teams where they're going to be on my league pass, where we're going to be watching them a lot on NBA League Pass this season.
I mean, that roster is sick. It's pretty stacked. They gave up almost
nothing.
Yeah, but so
are the Lakers on paper, too, this year. It doesn't mean it'll work out. I'm not saying it won't. But, I mean, I expect Brooklyn to be better than they were. They got rid of coach killer Chris Humphries, too, in the deal. It's not a coach killer. Just nobody likes Chris Humphries. Go back. If you want to see why Chris Humphries didn't go to Kansas, there's a nice story about that, which I think I brought up before. But Chris Humphries, I don't even know. He's not just hated because of the Kardashians, let's put it that way.
Fair enough. Let's bounce back then, away from the trade. Go to the number 3 pick, Washington Wizards. Were you surprised with Otto Porter? Because that was a name that was floated with the Cavs for a while.
That was the most obvious pick in the draft. That was the one that went according to plan.
Okay.
We were like, good pick, Washington. You get the kid. He stays at home. He played at Georgetown. He's a block down the street. I love the pick by Washington. They needed a 3. You already have Wall. You have Beal. You have Nene. Plug in a 3 guard. You traded Jordan Crawford to Boston. This is exactly what you need. He filled a perfect hole. Washington gets an A+ on my board for doing that. I love it.
Hey, so let's go from an A+ to the number 4 pick, Bobcats.
D-, D.
What kind of player do you see Zeller turning into?
Zeller can be one of those guys. I mean, he can put up 16, 17 a game, but he's not. Zeller's potential doesn't match what Alex Len and Nerlens Noel's or even Ben McLemore for that case. You know, when you're a team that's terrible, and I mean Charlotte is terrible, you don't pass up on the top tier talent. You take the guys with the highest ceiling, not what you know what you're going to get. You take the guys that have the biggest. You know, I don't ever see Cody Zeller being an all-star. Guys like Nerlens Noel has all-star potential. Alex Len has all-star potential. You can make a couple all-star games. I don't know about Cody Zeller, and that's why I just, I'm not sold on the pick. I think they took a guy with not that, Cody Zeller's ceiling is only so high. Len and Noel have much higher ceilings.
And that's what the top of the draft is all about. That's what the top is all about.
And exactly. And I'm not a fan of what Charlotte did. I think Michael Jordan's draft every year, except I think they made one great pick, and that was Kemba Walker a few years ago. That was it. But otherwise, they've screwed up on almost everything.
How much longer of a tenure do you see Jordan having over there?
As long as he owns the team, I mean, he's not going to fire himself. He wants yes men in his organization, and that's what he's got. I'm glad I'm not part of the Bobcats organization. That's all I have to say.
Wow. Number 5, Phoenix, Alex Len.
Good pick, but, I mean, also, why not take Ben McLemore? You already have Martin Gortat there. I mean, that's, basically, now what do you do with Gortat? You got to trade him. And they didn't trade him on draft night, so, I think McLemore would have been a nice fit to Phoenix. They needed an offensive weapon, to pair along with Goran Dragic. That's why I would have taken there, but, they took Len. And, I think Anthony Bennett would have been a nice fit there, except he went to Cleveland at 1. Even for a short time, I was, still thinking to myself, I wonder if the Cavs are going to swap Bennett for Len. I can see that happening.
To pick your favorite player and then swap some assets after the fact. A lot of people were saying that on Twitter, that it's like, hey, hang on, the trade's coming. They picked somebody else's guy.
No, I kind of knew. I knew when Len was picked. I was like, I haven't heard anything about the Cavaliers trading this pick. I was like, I don't think it's happening. And then it's 6. Nerlens Noel to New Orleans. I was like, wow. Pair him with Anthony Davis. You got a hell of a front court.
When is he going to be back, though? He's going to be halfway through the season?
Well, I mean, he's not even on New Orleans. He got traded, so.
Well,
So when they made the pick,
what did you think of the trade?
I was just like, okay, well, here's my assessment of the trade. I know I differentiate with the guys from ESPN a ton. But I think Philly. At first, I said Philly got hosed, and I'm looking at it, and here's my honest assessment of the trade. New Orleans got a top 10 point guard in the league in Drew Holiday. They got an all-star point guard who's 22 years old. Okay? You pair him with Eric Gordon, if he's ever healthy and can play more than 12 games a year, that's going to be an unbelievable backcourt. In your front court, you've got Anthony Davis and you've got Ryan Anderson. You've got great guys in your front court, too. They're one of those teams to watch. They're not going to have it. I know they have a top 5 protected pick. I expect them to they'll probably be in the A seed this year as long as they're healthy. They'll probably be the A seed in the West. And they have a ton of cap room, too. And I won't be surprised if they go and use it. New Orleans is one of those teams. They're in win-now mode by acquiring Drew Holiday. Yeah, they gave up on Nerlens Noel. Their front court defensively would have been unreal. It would have been Block City down there, or SWAT City, however you want to call it. But, they would have been two fantastic interior defenders. In Noel and Davis. I mean, Davis is all around. Davis is a good perimeter defender, too. So, but, I mean, it would have been very athletic, but it doesn't give you a lot of space on the offensive end, but we don't have to worry about that. But Drew Holiday is an unbelievable point guard. He really is. And it puts Philly in, Philly picked up a top 5 protected pick, which I tend to think if Philly, when they do get the pick, it's not going to be in the top 5 years. I project it'll be at the end of the lottery, somewhere between 12 and 17. Somewhere in that range, 12 and 16. But like you said, you might be able to get a really damn good player next year at 12.
Yeah.
And Philly picked up Nerlens Noel, and they got their new point guard in Michael Carter-Williams. So if Carter-Williams can learn to shoot, he's going to be a good NBA player. But that's a big if. He's got a lot of length. It could make out well for Philly. But I can tell you right now, Philly might win 10 games this year with their current roster in place.
Wow.
With Carter-Williams, Evan Turner, and who knows if Noel's going to play. You don't have a lot of pieces there. You really don't. You traded Iguodala last year and you got Bynum for him. You got essentially nothing. You gave him up for nothing. Bynum's gone. Who knows where he's going? So, Philly is projected, in my opinion, to be the worst team in the league next year. Them with the Bobcats, and the Celtics will be bad too.
The race to the bottom. Trying to get the other Canadian, trying to get Andrew Wiggins.
Starting from the bottom, now we're here. So, that's what it's going to be like next year. This is a race. You're seeing a playoff team like Boston blow up their entire roster. Finally, Danny Ainge blows it up, and blows it up in the right season too, to go and tank finally. He let his run go as far as he could, and finally he's tanking it. They know, Boston fans better know what they're getting into this year, because if they want to get in the number one pick, it'll pay off big time. But they ruined any shot they had at next summer landing a superstar in free agency, I think. I mean, not necessarily, but it's going to be very, very tough to be able to land a superstar in free agency.
Why would that be?
Just because they blew up their roster. I mean, that doesn't mean, though, but if Rondo has a huge year, Solinger comes out strong, and Jeff Green has a great year, who knows? Then maybe you can go, we have barely any money committed, on the cap. We can go out there and sign 2 max guys. But do I see LeBron even considering, granted, it's hard to see LeBron ever consider Boston. But you always have to keep that possibility out there. What if Carmelo Anthony, when he's a free agent next year? You have to keep those possibilities out there of these guys considering them. And, I think it hurts Boston's chances. They're going to be so bad this year. And most likely they will be. It doesn't necessarily mean they will. Teams have surprise years and players have surprise years. But, and then Boston drafted Kelly Olynyk, which wasn't in a win-now mode. Olynyk, we'll get to Olynyk in a minute. But getting back to, the 6th pick in the draft, I think New Orleans made out great in that trade. I think both them and Philly win. If Philly's able to get a decent pick in next year's draft, if they're able to get somewhere 12 right outside the lottery, and they're able to land Andrew Wiggins because they stunk so bad, or Aaron Gordon, or Andrew Harrison, if they're able to land one of those guys, Philly will be an instant winner in that trade too.
Part of me was kind of hoping the Cavs were going to be able to move some pieces around, but it's either on the table or it's not. It's a good idea or it's not. They just didn't.
I have to give Bill Simmons credit where it's due, though. He made a great point last night. At one point when he said, when people are going, why did Philly just give up Drew Holiday? And he made a great point going, they already gave up Iguodala the year before. They weren't going anywhere with Holiday. They weren't going anywhere with him. And they were a 34-win team, 35-win team with Drew Holiday this year. They're not a championship team. And even with a healthy Bynum, they probably would have won around 50. So, and like I said, this is an all or nothing league. I've said that on so many occasions. You either go for it or you tank. You do not want to be the Milwaukee Bucks or the mid-'90s Cavaliers. It gets you nowhere in the NBA. Nowhere. So Philly decided to finally blow it up, and that's why now you know why they haven't chosen a coach yet, because you need a guy who's willing to coach this team when they're going to be so bad this year.
What's Byron Scott doing these days? What's he doing these days?
I mean, who knows? Byron could come in there for 3 years, get fired, and then when they start getting good, bring in someone else.
That's a common theme with that gentleman. Anyway, moving on. Let's go to number 7. Let's go to Sacramento Kings. How do you feel about
Nakamura? They took the highest player on the board. They made out good, but they need to trade for a veteran at this point. They're done with. They've had so many high picks and so many guys who are very talented too. But the problem is you cannot just have rookies playing with rookies. You need a combination and a mix of veterans on the team. You already traded away the top 5 pick from last year.
Yeah, we talked about that.
You already traded away Thomas Robinson, who I still like. I still like Thomas Robinson a lot, and I still think he might be traded this summer from Houston. But, I still book it that he's traded, depending on what they do in free agency. But I think he'll be traded anyways. I just don't know where yet. But that's another guy who, I think McLemore is the best choice. But like I said, if I were Sacramento, you're going to have a hard time trading a guy like DeMarcus Cousins. I heard he was offered up in trades and nobody wanted him.
Really? Nobody wanted him?
He's a head case. He's a head case off the court. Nobody wants him. I think there's a couple of guys who get him traded around. I would have understood if Miami would have made a move to trade Bosh for Cousins and pick up the 7th overall pick. I would have completely understood that. Miami, because LeBron and Wade aren't going to put up with that attitude. They would force him, to go in there, and mature. I think he'd be a great fit in Miami if, for Chris Bosh, and if they, and then Miami would have been able to add a guy like Trey Burke. Imagine that. Miami would have gotten a great point guard in Burke, to play with LeBron and Wade, and you would have had a young center in Cousins who, if he matures, then, you got yourself a guaranteed another ring, and Miami could keep on their, Miami could keep their streak alive by winning a third in a row. But, Riley wasn't willing to pull the trigger, and then I don't know if it was ever proposed. I doubt it was. But I'm just saying, I think Sacramento made a good pick, but they need veterans on that roster. You're not going to keep winning with young rookies.
What about the Pistons? How do you feel about them? Caldwell-Pope.
I like Caldwell-Pope, although I would have taken the hometown kid, Trey Burke, just from the University of Michigan. But they feel that if they feel Brandon Knight can be a legitimate point guard in this league, then Dumars may have made the right decision. But I would have taken Trey Burke or even C.J. McCollum. I think McCollum can be. I think he's a lethal scorer. And McCollum's a Northeast Ohio kid. He's from Canton. He went to Lehigh, and I really like McCollum a lot. I didn't get to see him a lot until towards the end of the year. But I mean, the kid, C.J. McCollum could be a very good NBA player, and I think they passed him. I think Caldwell-Pope is a good player, but I like McCollum better. And I would have also selected Trey Burke probably in that spot.
Well, and, there are a whole bunch of trades going on, a lot of shuffling of the deck here. I mean, we've already talked about Muhammad, Carter Williams. I don't know. How much more you want to talk about this? I mean, any other surprises?
We can go up some more. I mean, there's still some definite talent taken in the next, 10, 15 picks.
Okay, so the Timberwolves picked Trey Burke. Take it from there.
They traded him away, and who exactly did they get in the trade? I forgot who they picked later in the trade.
Yeah, so that kind of makes two of us. I don't have it right in front of me. Things start getting a little wacky with all the picks and trades. You like McCollum though? You think the Trailblazers?
Yeah, I really like C.J. McCollum. I think he's a nice fit in Minnesota.
Okay.
I think he's a nice fit. Wait, they have McCollum. Didn't they get McCollum?
Man,
Minnesota wound up with him.
The list I have in front of me doesn't show like the arrow, including where they all ended up. It's like the whole deck of cards got shuffled on me.
Okay, I believe Minnesota wound up with McCollum, and I think that was a great pick.
Okay. Sixers. We talked about the Sixers. They picked Michael Carter-Williams to start with.
Like I said, if the kid learns to shoot, but he's gonna have a very, very rough rookie year.
Thunder. Steven Adams.
A typical Thunder pick. They got a guy who's very, very raw offensively, but he's good defensively. Just incredibly raw offensively, and basically the offensive game hasn't come in yet.
Mavericks.
But it could wind up paying down the road. Didn't the Mavericks trade down a bunch of times?
Once again, I'm on the ESPN draft page, and it doesn't give me the arrows showing. Okay, they started here. Then
go
they did this
to ESPN. Go to the draft grades, and then they'll have all the players listed by the team.
Hang on, where am I going to the draft? What?
The draft grades that Chad Ford gave, because that has all the players listed that eventually wound up with each team.
Oh, jeez, yeah, well, I only getting two of them. Why am I not getting all of them here?
Oh, it might be an insider.
Ah, yes.
Hold on, I will text you my insider account to log in. Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on.
This is how we roll, everybody. We make it happen.
Hold on.
This has been the never-ending NBA season. From Olympics to non. I'm. But it's not even going to end after the draft. You don't know what Dwight Howard's doing. You don't know.
Oh, I just sent it to you. Did you receive it?
Where you at? You text me?
I texted it to you. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Waiting for it. Oh, there it is. Okay, Zach, talk about something for a minute while I log in here.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's a topic while I log in. Dwight Howard. We'll press pause on here. I'll get into this thing.
I had heard last week. I heard earlier in the week that Dwight Howard was. I heard that Dwight Howard would be going to Houston, most likely, or even possibly Dallas. The report surfaced 2 days ago. I had heard about it. I mean, I've kind of known for some time that it's going to be hard to get Howard back. I mean, L.A., all I can say is L.A. better not be stubborn and try to get something out of this. Do a sign and trade. Don't feel so bitter, because it's, like I said, you have to just pull off a sign and trade if you can. Whether you can pick up an asset like Thomas Robinson from Houston or Jeremy Lin or Omar Asik, get one of them. Get what you can out of the deal. You don't want to wind up with nothing. If I were the Lakers, personally, if I lose Howard, I tank next season. I go after Andrew Wiggins myself. Then because I have a roster that's completely empty, it's gutted, unless Kobe Bryant wants to stay. But for the most part, it's a gutted roster. You can bring in anyone. It's L.A. They can, because after having a couple down years, any superstar goes, now you can come to L.A. There's not as much pressure playing with the Lakers. D'Antonio will be fired probably after next year and going, I can pick my coach. I get to live in L.A. I go, and I'm playing with the top 5 pick. So it becomes a more desirable team to play with.
Well, I keep trying to log in here, pal. I'm doing what you told me, and it's not rocking it. I don't know what to tell you.
For ESPN Insider?
Yeah. We can talk about the Hawks and the Celtics all day, though. Got those two.
I mean, Kelly Olynyk with the Celtics. I think we passed on Portland. Wait, Portland wound up with C.J. McCollum, didn't they? Portland wound up with McCollum. Minnesota didn't. I can't think of who Minnesota ended up with at this point. It's just like it's blanking me right now. But McCollum went to Portland, I'm almost positive, thinking back on it. And I do like McCollum going to Portland. I do like that move. He's a perfect fit over there, playing alongside Lillard. But they need to move LaMarcus Aldridge on draft night. I think they did because their organization right now is going nowhere. He's not happy there. And they're not going anywhere right now. This is a team that won 33 games last year, 35, somewhere in that range. And that was with Aldridge and with Lillard. They're probably going to lose Hickson in free agency. I don't know how much better they can get. So you really have to look at it and go, maybe we should have traded Aldridge if we would have been able to get a nice haul. I know the Cavaliers offered up Waiters, Thompson, and a pick, I believe, which was number 1, from what I hear, from what I understand. If I were Portland, I would have pulled out that deal.
Hang on, hold on. Say that again. You heard that the Cavs offered who?
I heard the Cavaliers offered up Thompson, Waiters, and I think it may have been the number 1 overall pick.
For who?
LaMarcus Aldridge.
Thompson and Waiters and the number 1 pick.
Yes.
You would have done that deal if you were Chris Grant?
The reason I would have done it if I were Chris Grant to pair Irving and Aldridge, and then you have your shot next year and going, okay, we have a choice of one of the top free agents between, we can go out and get him. We're going to put on a team this year. We can go out and still sign a guy like, Andrew Bynum on a 1-year deal, or go out and trade for someone else. We can go and, maybe the Cavaliers would have been, more open to trading to Paul Pierce if they made that move. Because then that's your stopgap for a year, and you can go and try to lure LeBron. And you go, listen, Wade and Bosh or Irving and Aldridge. I believe they offered up a very similar package with Kevin Love.
I thought there was going to be a Love deal there.
Shot.
I thought that was going to. I thought something was going to happen with Kevin Love. I felt that for a while. No
That
doubt.
doesn't mean it won't during the season. If Minnesota's struggling during the season again, it doesn't mean it won't happen. Flip side, you go, you know what? Kevin Love's leaving. Now's our chance to get rid of him. It doesn't mean just because they haven't gotten rid of him on draft day doesn't mean, before the season or the deadline. Don't forget, there's always the NBA trade deadline, where they can get rid of him. Love struggled last season. I tend to think that Kevin Love won't re-up in Minnesota. He was very, very hurt when David Kahn didn't offer him a max extension a couple of years ago because he wanted to go to Rubio instead, which was idiotic at the time.
Oh.
But Kahn made his grave, he lied in it, and now he's gone. So there's a lot of issues that need to be worked out with the Timberwolves. And, the Minnesota better win this year. Kevin Love still isn't going to be happy. I mean, he has not been happy in Minnesota. They weren't good to him the first time around. And so it's going to be tough.
Well, he's been complaining for quite a bit, and complaining doesn't necessarily get you where you need to go. I don't know. I don't. Some of these teams, I just can't really figure out their long-term game plan, Zach. Like, I just don't know if they have a 1-year, 3-year, 5-year plan, or if they just kind of panic every 6 months and make moves. You remember how the Cavs were doing that? It was just kind of they would keep making moves, but they had no 3-year plan or 5-year plan.
They were just making moves by the day. They like literally just make moves. And now you see Chris Grant. Every move he's made has been strategically for the future. And now it looks like, he took a guy Bennett who will help with the Cavs now. Nerlens Noel would not have helped the Cavs until December at the earliest. And who knows if he would have helped after not playing basketball for so long. But there are a lot of factors that go into this, and I think the Cavaliers' long-term goal is they've still neglected the three every single year. And I keep saying it over and over again. Their ultimate goal, and you heard them on the draft, talking about LeBron last night coming back. They did not stop talking about it because it is a realistic possibility, despite what the uninformed Cleveland media think about it, going, oh, he's not coming back, he's not coming back. It's more realistic he comes back than he doesn't at this point. I honestly believe it will. Now, if he wins a third championship in Miami and tries to go for a fourth, it's always a possibility too. But like I said, at this point today, I still think he comes back to the Cavs after next season. I'm sticking to my gut on this one, and from people I've talked to, from people that are around him, I think he goes back to Cleveland.
Well, look, you say certain things on air, and we talk off air. I mean, you are very convinced that that's going to happen, to the point where I see that as a possibility, whereas I did not used to even think of that as a possibility.
I don't care how much heat I take for this one. People can rip on me all they want, but if people knew what I knew, they would be thinking differently. Don't listen. I'm going to say it 1,000 times over and over again. If you're sitting there and every day you're listening to guys like Kenny Rote on the radio, get a life. The guy's uninformed. He knows nothing. This is also the guy who informed Tom Heckert and Andy Reid were teaming up on Arizona because a source on an airplane told him. And, last night he goes, I updated my mock because my inside source told me the Cavs are taking McLemore at number one. He doesn't, and it's the guy who asks the stupidest questions at every press conference. He's entertainment only. He's a fan. He's not an inside source. He's not, he doesn't know anything about the game. I hate to say it, but he's a typical Cleveland fan. I tend to think in my own mind, and because other people in league circles, the most likely scenario is that LeBron will re-up with the Heat if they can make moves, or he'll stay, or he will go to Cleveland. I can't see him anywhere else. He's not going to go to the Brooklyn Nets. They don't have the cap space for him. The Knicks already have Carmelo Anthony. Boston's not going to happen. His only other realistic shot is the LA Lakers, and I see that being very tough, especially with Kobe Bryant committing to play 3 to 4 more years of basketball.
Hold on, committing to play 3-4 years?
Kobe Bryant said last week that he wanted to play 3 to 4 more years, and I can tell you LeBron and Kobe are not teaming up in L.A.
What if it's not Kobe's choice?
And it'll make it almost nearly impossible. The Clippers don't have the room to go and maneuver a deal for LeBron unless Miami is able to work out a sign and trade for Blake Griffin. And I don't think that would happen either. So I think LeBron's most realistic landing spot other than Miami is Cleveland. I think Cleveland more likely than not.
And how do you feel Doc is going to be as a coach over there? Pretty good? Clippers?
Oh, he's going to be fantastic. He saved Chris Paul. I mean, Sterling, I was shocked Sterling shelled out the money for the highest paid coach in the league.
Yeah.
Shocked.
Well, everybody, Sterling is not made of sterling. He's a penny pincher. He's made of copper. That's a big knock on him.
I think copper's putting it too nicely. It's more like fool's gold.
A little pyrite. I wanted to ask you about Shabazz Muhammad over at the T-Wolves. Because you're not a huge
That's who they talk. Yeah, and McCollum went to the Blazers. Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to sort this out. Your thing finally logged me in, and it's just depending on which chart you're looking at. It's like I have who everybody picked, but it didn't show me part 2 and part 3, so it was getting a little confusing there. So yeah, Shabazz Muhammad, and how do you feel with him on the T-Wolves?
I think he's a good. I think he could be a good fit. Like I said, you have no risk at picking at 14. You're picking in a draft where Shabazz has that superstar ability. I'm not saying he's going to become one, but he still has that possibility. Don't forget, this is the top-rated recruit out of high school a year ago. 2 years ago, we were talking about him as being the next superstar in the NBA.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before he got to college. I remember last year when he went to UCLA, all my friends in LA were going nuts. And I go, oh, UCLA is going to win the conference, but I still remember talking about it, going, it's still Ben Howland's system. We don't understand why he chose UCLA. If it were me, I would have gone to Arizona. I think that would have been his best fit, playing with Sean Miller. Or even Kansas or somewhere else. But he didn't. He went to UCLA. And, I think it's one of those ones where you drafted at 14. Granted, you could have had McCollum, which would have been a better fit. But Shabazz Muhammad has big play potential in the NBA. If he learns not to be so selfish, the guy, I think, had 26 assists all season. that's less than an assist a game. You know, for a two guard, we're talking about a guard. We're not talking about a center. We're talking about a guard.
We're talking about practice,
you know,
not a game. Not a game. We're talking practice.
You know, and he does it. He's not a great rebounder. You know, and he's a very selfish player. If he learns not to be so selfish and lose his giant ego that he has a chance to be a very good player in this league. And hopefully he can right his ship, because I'd like to see him do well. You know, I'd love to see him succeed.
Yeah, I mean, you were rooting for him. You've always liked it. Anyway, I mean, it's just talent is talent, but you got to get the headspace right. You know, LeBron had a ton of talent. He was even MVP, but his headspace wasn't quite there. And you see a different guy. He's grown up into it. But, you know, a lot of it comes down to who you surround yourself with. I was going to ask you, what do you feel about Trey Burke being on Utah Jazz? Kind of filling in, starting a new chapter over there.
Another great pick. They lose Mo Williams in free agency. You bring in a cheaper option who might even be a better player than Mo Williams already. Not already, but it's getting close. Good move for the Jazz. I think it was a great move. They got the guy they wanted. Trey Burke, like I said, could have arguably been the second overall pick in this draft. He was good enough to be the second overall pick.
Second overall pick. Huh. And you okay, so McCollum over on the Trailblazers, just a huge fan of that one. A huge fan.
Yes, big fan of that one. Like I said, he's got explosive offensive ability. He played in a small school at Lehigh, but, you know, after getting to watch film on him, you know, he really, really impressed me.
Michael Carter-Williams on the Sixers now with Noel. Good times.
They're going to have, like I said, it's going to be a very, very rough year.
but a brighter future.
But, you know, he needs to learn how to shoot. Trey Burke, though, shut him down in the Final Four. Dominated him. You know, Trey Burke didn't have a great game against Syracuse either. But Carter-Williams did nothing offensively in that game. Nothing.
So is it like the one piece of kryptonite out there, or did it expose the weaknesses in his game, did you feel?
I think it just exposed the weaknesses in his game. I mean, he was a projected top 5, top 6 pick until then, and, you know, then you realize, like, this kid's nothing special. Imagine him going against Chris Paul. He's going to get killed. You know, but Carter Williams has that big playability, 6'5" for a point guard, which says something. You know, he could be a good player in the NBA someday. It's just going to be a while down the road. It's not going to be instantaneous for him.
Mavericks ended up with Shane Larkin.
Love that they were able to keep trading down, and they wound up with the guy they like. I love Shane Larkin. He's quick. You know, like I said, he comes from a good family. He's a good kid. He's got a great vertical. I like Shane Larkin. You got your point guard. At least you got your backup point guard now. No matter what, he's going to be a good guard in this league. He's quick off the ball, and he can shoot. I like Shane Larkin a lot.
What about Mason Plumlee on Brooklyn?
I'm not a huge fan of Plumlee. I don't dislike him. I don't like him. He's just there. He's I don't really have much to say about Plumlee.
And then the Hawks, Dennis Schrader and who's this guy? Lucas Nogueira.
He's a European stash away that they had to do because Ferry's trying to still go after his Chris Paul and Dwight Howard, you know, which neither one of them will wind up signing with the Hawks, which I've said all along.
Oh, so they're just in kind of like an attempt to burn the pick.
Yeah, I mean, we stash the guy overseas and then he comes over a couple years later. I mean, the Bulls did it with Mirotic a couple of years ago, and he'll be over next year, and the kid's an absolute stud. But they did that in the Kyrie Irving draft.
Well, let's do this, man. Let's do this because we got the Dwight Howard saga to wrap up. Still trying to see if there's any super teams being built. You know, like you said, it's very interesting. Now we're gonna have to follow the race to the bottom to see who can get Andrew Wiggins. That's something. I mean, it's been on my radar, but now it's really on my radar because we've cleared out this year's draft and I can actually think about it. But there's still gonna be some free agent moves coming up real quick here. So why don't we do this? I know we bounced around that second part of the draft. I just had to make sure we had it accurate with all of the trades. Winners and losers. I know we laugh at that. But we still have to say who came out really impressive. Well, like, was there any team, any move, whether it was the Celtics by dumping all their team, or the Nets for the highway robbery? Just what was your thought, winners and losers? What impressed you and what just baffled you?
Losers of the draft, I'm going to say the Bobcats. I'm going to say winners, depending on how they do this season. I have to give it an incomplete right now, but I say the Pelicans. You got a top-tier point guard. You weren't going to get that kind of talent in this draft. Who knows? I mean, next year, if you wouldn't have traded for Drew Holiday, you would have been a bad team again, but who knows how bad would you have been, you know? Would you have been able to get Andrew Harrison? You know, he's the top point guard, or Marcus Smart next year. You don't know. It's a lottery for a reason. You know, and with Eric Gordon healthy, the Hornets aren't that bad of a team to begin with. So I think New Orleans has to go as a winner. I think if Philadelphia has a terrible year and they wind up with a top 3 pick, you know, and if New Orleans doesn't have a great year, if New Orleans is in the top 12, I think they wind up winners in this trade too. I think Brooklyn winds up a winner on paper. Like, granted, like the Lakers last year on paper were winners.
Yeah. Or the Heat
3
years ago.
During the season, they were losers.
Yep.
You know, Miami were winners all along. You know, even though they lost the title, they still, you know, Miami made a way. Like, you know, I mean, granted, they got who they wanted. They've been to 3 titles, won 2 of them. It's a dynasty. You have, I'm trying to think who else.
I wasn't comparing them necessarily because the Lakers tanked last year. They really stunk with all the things they had on the table, and you know the Heat. Yeah, okay, they came down to one extra game, but they were still in the finals. It wasn't a total loss like the Lakers, but just saying.
Other teams I think came away winners. You have to look at Orlando. They got Oladipo. I think that was a nice pickup. I think Utah comes out as huge winners in this with Trey Burke. Going in there with the 14th pick in the draft, you wind up with Trey Burke. I would say that's a win.
Yeah.
You know, Milwaukee, you have to give a complete incomplete to because they drafted a Greek guy, you know, who's going to have absolutely no factor. He won't even be in the NBA this season, most likely. Granted, I can't pronounce his name. Just hit some random keys on your keyboard in the home row, and you can have his name.
Let me try it. Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah, exactly my point. Type in some random letters on a keyboard and you have his name.
You got me. I tried. At least I had to give it a shot.
I remember last night when I read the pick, I go, who? And someone goes to me, like, you hear one of the European scouts goes, good player, very, very incomplete, though. You can't judge it at this point. I was like, I've never even heard of this guy.
They say,
and I was like,
they say he has the body of Kevin Durant, very little experience playing against other talented players. Yeah, they're looking at D-League for a while.
So he's 6'10" and 150 pounds. You know, Kevin Durant's able to get away with his size. You know, Kevin Durant's skinny, but, you know, he's the best shooter in the league. I'm not expecting this Greek guy to be the next Kevin Durant. Very few players are. You know, I'm trying to think who else came out winners in this draft. Like I said, you know, I think Cleveland has to come out basically as, you know, they got Karsev at 19, who they desperately wanted without having to pick up Sean Marion's $9.3 million contract, you know, to move up 6 spots to get their guy. So I think Cleveland comes out winners too. They got the guy they wanted. They coveted all on. That doesn't necessarily mean he'll be the best, but they got a guy they wanted. I think Portland comes out winners too. Portland wound up getting, I think Portland got Jeff Withey too, if I'm not mistaken. They got Alan Crabb, and they got C.J. McCollum. They got 3 guys who are all at one point, you know, especially Withey could have easily gotten in the top 20 to top 25, and Alan Crabb could have easily been the top 20 pick too. So those are 2 guys. Those were steals in the second round. I think Portland comes out winners in this draft.
Yeah, they got Crabb, Withey, and Marko Todorovic, along with C.J. McCollum.
Yeah, I think they come out winners. I think Portland comes out winners in this draft too. I think Chicago getting Tony Snell. Just because Chicago, you know, they needed shooters. They go out and they get Snell. He's exactly, you know, he's a good interior shooter. He can shoot from all over the place. He's one of those that he'll need a little time to develop, but especially with Luol Deng's expiring contract in a year, he's going to be one. And with Butler being the starting 2 guard this year in Chicago, it's a good move. You needed a backup 3. That's what you got, and he has big time starter potential.
What about Deshaun Thomas on the Spurs?
I like that one too, but I mean, doubtful he plays right away. You know, most second-round picks go to the D-League, you know, to start off with. Thomas is one of those guys who can step in and score right away, but I wonder how he's going to fit as an NBA body. You know, he needs to step up and he needs to play defense, or otherwise he'll never see time in top system.
Well, I always root for the Ohio State guys. I like to see him succeed, but...
I do too, but, you know, like I said, it drives me nuts when you have all these dudes on Twitter. Why haven't we taken Deshaun Thomas here? Why haven't we done this? I'm like, oh God. I was like, the league. I was like, there's a couple good players in the league from Ohio State, and it's Mike. There's a great player in the league from Ohio State, and it's Mike Conley.
Yeah.
Evan Turner is the number 2 overall pick. Basically, has been a bust at this point. He hasn't done much. Being the number 2 overall pick, you would expect the number 2 to produce better numbers than Evan Turner has. That's not saying, he could be the guy this year in Philly. He could have put up huge numbers this year. I expect his numbers to increase all around the board because he's going to have to do a lot. He doesn't have a lot of help. And then there's other teams, the Lakers. The Lakers could come out big-time losers out of this year because, all they got was Ryan. Didn't they draft Ryan Kelly was the only guy they drafted?
Who are we on now? Ryan Kelly to where?
The Lakers. The Lakers.
Lakers. Yeah. I mean, Ryan Kelly at 48. I'm just
scrolling
through here looking.
No impact pick. Kelly doesn't do anything. He'll have no impact, and you're most likely to lose Dwight Howard. And and if LA is going to be stubborn and they lose him and not willing to work out a sign and trade, go ahead. Go ahead and be stubborn about leaving. But at least Cleveland, what they do is, who cares? LeBron got a max deal. He's still, no matter what, would have had that opt-out clause anyways after 4 anyways, where he's a free agent again. At least the Cavaliers were able to coop some picks, and they got the 19th pick out of this one. They were able to add picks. And, last year it helped them add Tyler Zeller. I know he's not a huge impact guy. He's not LeBron, but better to get something from nothing. And if LeBron walks after next year, the Cavs have the Miami Heat 2015 unprotected pick. It makes a difference.
That is such a
It could wind up being a high pick.
That is such a great point that you bring up. It's because if it implodes, I mean, just if one jumps ship, who knows? They could all jump ship.
You cannot be stubborn in the NBA. You have to take what you can get. If you're going to lose a guy, you're going to lose him anyway. Don't just be like, oh, well, we're not going to give you the max deal, because we hate you. The Cavaliers, Chris Grant did what he had to do in Cleveland. He knew he was losing LeBron. Might as well just get the sign and trade, pick up 3 extra first-rounders out of it. Do it.
Could they have held out to get a better deal on that, or that was a pretty sweet deal, do you think?
No. LeBron was signing in Miami. It was the best they were going to get. Anywhere we were going, whether we would have went to Chicago, there would have been the same deal on the table, except they would have probably gotten Luau Deng on the table. But the Cavs couldn't dictate where LeBron was going. He was a free agent. He got to go wherever he wanted. He just wouldn't have been able to sign a 6-year deal going down to Miami. He would have had to sign a 4- or 5-year deal, whatever the CBA said at the time, which was fine. It didn't matter. And I think another winner of this draft, I forgot to say, even though they didn't pick, or they did pick, they got Reggie Bullock, are the Los Angeles Clippers. They got Doc Rivers in the sense they're keeping Chris Paul because of it.
Yeah, well, maybe.
For trading a future first-rounder. Chris Paul's not going to walk with Doc there. There's no way they would have made that move knowing that Chris Paul, I think, is fully intent on re-signing with the Clippers at this point. I think he always has been.
Despite Danny Ferry's...
I just wanted to see who they were going to bring in the coach. No, I think if they kept Vinny Del Negro as coach, I wasn't going to say what else I was going to say. If they kept Vinny Del Negro as the coach, and then I think he would have walked. But, at one point I think there's no way Sterling going to be this stubborn and let a star player walk over a stupid coach. Pay the guy. Chris Paul will generate more money. He'll generate an extra $30 or $40 million extra by having him there than not having him there. And the Clippers are now if Dwight Howard walks, it'll be the best thing ever for the Clippers. They will be the elite show in town, at least for one season, that is. And probably more. But the Clippers will have their chance to shine on the national stage, and be above and be the more important team in LA for 1 year. Now, granted, more people still care about the Lakers, I will say that. But the Clippers will be the winning team in LA, not the Lakers. People focus on the Clippers having they had 54, 55 wins this season, had a great season, but they were eliminated in the first round of the playoffs, just like the Lakers. Doesn't matter at the end of the season. They were both gone in the first round. The Clippers have to be able to come in there this year and take their stand and try to win, and be above the Lakers. They've always been the second act in town that nobody's ever cared about until the last 2 seasons with Chris Paul. You have to make it your year.
Well, maybe we got to go. Maybe we got to go see a game. I've never seen a Lakers game, and I've been to one Clipper game. Might have to make that happen.
I've been to a lot of both, so more Laker than Clipper.
That's kind of your gig, though. Well, I know that you spend your time.
Well, I mean,
on
up
the
until
college
this
players.
year, I had season. Up until this year, I had season tickets for 2 years for both. So it was, I got to go to a lot of games. I was very fortunate. So just through work and everything, I was able to go. I just remember it was spent, the lockout season. I spent, I think I went to like 13 Clipper games and 14 Laker games. I had to go to 27 games a year ago, between the two. And I was very, very fortunate to go to those in both great seats, right behind the visitors' bench. So it was definitely a treat to go be able to watch, a lot of basketball games.
Yeah, well, hey, let me ask you this then, as we wrap up here. I don't know if it was surprising to see what the Celtics did. I don't know if it was surprising, to get rid of the coach and then get rid of KG and Paul Pierce. Dwight, at this point, who knows what the heck is going to happen there? Is there any move that you have a hunch you're going to see that might not even be on the radar or something other than?
I think some team could go in there. You're going to see Andre Iguodala. I don't think Iguodala is going to get the money he's looking for. I really don't. I honestly believe the loser of the Dwight Howard sweepstakes, whether it's Dallas or Houston, one of those two teams that loses, will either wind up with Andrew Bynum or Josh Smith.
Does Bynum have anything left?
On a one-year deal, why not sign him? You have nothing to lose on a one-year deal. I mean, unless you sign him for max money and he poops out again, then big deal. I tend to think he'd be a nice pick. If the Cavaliers are trying to win now and Bynum's knee checks out, go and sign him a one-year max deal. You can do that. If you're desperate to win now, that's how you're going to do it. You add a healthy Bynum to the roster, and if you play 60 games, 65 games, you're looking at a Cavs team that's going to win somewhere in the 40s, upper 40s, if they are able to add Andrew Bynum. I wouldn't take that out of the realm of possibilities at this point. Dan Gilbert saying how he wants to win now. You're not going to win now. If you go out and you sign Andre Iguodala, you're making the biggest mistake your franchise has ever made.
Because
that means you're taking yourself out of the LeBron sweepstakes to sign a player who's never going to get you over the hump. He's going to get you to 35 to 40 wins every year like he did with Philly, and didn't have that big of an impact in Denver. He's a good player, but is he a superstar? No. And I honestly believe Houston's right around the corner. Houston's knocking at the door to be a championship contender. If you had a healthy Bynum to that roster, I think they're a very, very good team. They won 46 games this year. And, this is a team that didn't have a chance to mesh until, they didn't get better until towards the end of the season, like real good. They were a 500 team most of the year. And now you're looking at a team that's one player away. Even Josh Smith makes them mid to high 50s wins. They're still one of the best top three teams in the West with Josh Smith. They're very, very close to being an elite team. So if Houston's able to land Dwight, I tend to think Dwight will go to Houston over Dallas. That's just my thinking. I see Dallas as having the trouble. If Dwight really wants to win, you go to Houston. Because that makes for a big, big break in Houston. We're going, Dwight Howard actually thinks it through going, I could easily have 16 wins on a team. I can make this team a 62-win team, and we're young, too. Harden's 23, Jeremy Lin's like 24, 25. Omar Sheik's 26. That is Chandler Parsons is, 23 or 24. This is a young roster, and I think Parsons, Howard, and Harden arguably makes up the best big three in the league at that point. It's comparable to Miami just because LeBron's still that elite. It's right up there with Miami, maybe even better. And they'll have a really talented team around them too. So if I were Dwight, I'd get to Houston. If you want to win rings, Houston's the city to go to. They're going to be very, very dominant with Dwight Howard in there if they get him.
That's what feels right to me at this point. To think about
Daryl Morey will win Executive of the Year if he can pull that off. If he's, and Dwight has been in constant contact with Chandler Parsons and James Harden. Parsons, this is why teams I don't understand some of the stash with. Chandler Parsons was a mid-second round pick in the 2011 draft. Imagine if Cleveland would have gotten him, in the 2011 draft rather than taking a guy late, who they stashed away, in Europe who you'll never see. Imagine Chandler Parsons in the Cavs. He makes them instantly better. He's a great player. He's a 15-5-5 guy. And he was only his second year in the league. This is a guy at Florida who was a good guy, was a good player, didn't produce a ton, and he's just improved his shooting so much. He's become a very good player in the NBA. I see him as a future All-Star, too, if he keeps improving the way he has been. Parsons could be a fantastic player in this league. And I really, really like what Houston's done. Daryl Morey's done a fantastic job, and I can't give the guy enough praise. If I were Howard, I would seriously consider Houston. It is my top choice. Yeah. And, it's too bad that, Sterling wouldn't be willing to part with Blake Griffin to sign and trade, because if you put Dwight in L.A. and the Clippers, you know, it allows the Lakers to still have Blake Griffin, who's a very marketable player. He'll be more marketable with the Lakers than he would have been with the Clippers anyways. And you got Dwight and CP3 on the same team, but I just can't see the Lakers pulling that off. And I don't think the Clippers would do it, even though I think they should.
That is very interestingly phrased. Well, how did you say it again?
So
I don't think the Lakers would
wind
do
up with
it.
a young all-star, you know, a borderline superstar. The Lakers wind up with a great player, and the Clippers wind up with a better player. But essentially, I can't see the Lakers putting it in the hands of the Clippers to win an NBA title.
I could see that. But once again, if you're losing the player anyway, you got to get those draft picks. You got to do something that makes your team better.
Would you rather see Dwight Howard go to Houston? What does it matter? You're not, you know, either Houston or the Clippers are going to win, so you're still the Lakers. You know, that's why if I'm the Lakers, I try to facilitate something where if I know I'm losing Dwight, I go, listen, we need to somehow talk to the LA Clippers here and acquire, because if we can get Blake Griffin, you know, we've got a young player to build around. You know, why not do it?
Yeah, Zach, which one of your schoolmates do you want your ex-girlfriend to date? I don't know. She ain't with me. Whatever.
I mean, like, yeah, it doesn't matter. You're going to be going out with someone. It doesn't matter. You're either the Rockets are going to be winning rings or the Clippers are. It doesn't matter. And Dwight Howard doesn't necessarily bring a ring to a team. You know, I think Houston's more ready than anyone, because don't forget, you don't have to give up really anyone. You know, if you have to give up Thomas Robinson or Omer Asik, you know, to get Howard, so be it. You're going to do it. You know, but Houston is one dominant player away from winning a ring. Josh Smith makes him a deep playoff contender. A healthy Andrew Bynum gets him close to a title, too. But if you're able to add Dwight Howard, that is a championship team.
Everybody, you've been listening to Zak Baris, lifelong Cleveland sports fan, NBA scout. He can be found on Twitter at ZBaris. That's ZBARIS. Zach, you had your nice little 4-hour nap. I got a hunch you're going to sleep well again tonight. So why don't you get rested up, and we'll reconvene when some of these big pieces start to fall here. How long is it going to be before all the moving and shaking settles down with all the trades? All the free agency.
Free agency starts, I believe, on the 10th.
Okay, about a week and a half.
If I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So yeah, about 12 days from now, less than 2 weeks. But you'll definitely see it, and it's going to be, you know, I'm very interested to see where Dwight ends up, because he's going to wind up shaking everything up in free agency. And, you know, depending on where he goes, you know, who knows, he could keep it light. You know, I was seeing on Twitter the other day, unfortunately I wasn't in town to see it, but now, you know, I go out in my apartment in Hollywood. What do you know, there's a Dwight billboard a block away from my apartment.
Yeah,
you know,
too little too late. That just doesn't seem right to me.
You know, don't forget, I'm just going to say, Cleveland did that with the home thing with LeBron. Look how well that worked out. You know, if a billboard's really good enough to convince the guy to stay, to prove how much they love him, then okay, but I can guarantee you it's not.
Well, yeah. Nothing in life is permanent. Nothing in life is permanent, Zach. We'll see how it shakes out. We're about out of time today. So, hey, Zach, rest up. Congratulations on your first season. It's a trip. Thanks for taking us on the inside tour of what it feels like in there when it's all going down. I appreciate it, man.
All right, thank you.
All right, till next time. Take care. That is Zak Baris, everybody. Love it. The NBA, the season that never stops. My name's Brian Engelman. This has been the Unhappy Hour here on the New American Media. Just follow us everywhere on Twitter and Facebook and all that jazz. If you don't know how to do it, just click a few times. You'll figure it out. We're going to do Agree to Disagree next with Blake Wally. Stick around, everyone.